Hello, everyone. My name is Vishnu, and with me today is Amar,
Hello.
and welcome to the UDOS podcast. This is the podcast where we talk about things that you may not know enough about. So, today we're going to talk about jobs and how they may look like in the future. But before that, it's very important to know one thing, which is that COVID has accelerated the evolution of our jobs already. This is pretty common when we talk about how most of our meetings happen online, which means that we have less of a requirement to go to the workplace, or we don't need to meet our clients or our colleagues in person because everything has just shifted to be on the internet. And with the shift to a lot of our requirements for our jobs being on the internet, the evolution of our job continues to progress. So, with that being said, today we're going to look at a couple of examples or concepts of how our jobs would look like in the future. The first thing I want to talk about is digital nomads. So, what is a digital nomad? A digital nomad is a person who can carry out their job regardless of wherever they work. So, for instance, let's just say I were to be a programmer, right? And all I need to do, my code is just my laptop, as an example. So if all I need to do, my job is just my laptop, I can travel around the world and just use my laptop to do my job. So I just need the internet, I need my laptop, and I just need to be able to do my work. So if this is true, people can go traveling around the world. Like literally, you can travel while working, but not for work, just for your enjoyment. As an example, you could travel to maybe Maldives or Mauritius just to relax and chill while also doing your job at the same time. So this job is pretty common pre-COVID, where a lot of programmers had taken it upon themselves to just enjoy life and like do their work from many places, have meetings from like the back of a jacuzzi or at the beach just to relax. And the numbers are pretty common these days of people who have opted into becoming a digital nomad pre COVID. So the only issue that digital nomads have is the fact that their visa limits the countries that they can travel to, or how it takes quite a while in order for you to get a visa to travel to another country. Even though the struggle exists, I think a lot of people just want to travel anyways. And there are countries which try to attract a lot of people to stay in their country. For example, like Estonia, if you get their visa, right, you could stay in their country for like a whole year. So basically you get to enjoy the whole country while doing your job for a whole year, right? And this is how countries also try to make their own income by inviting more individuals to uh, hop onto their country and work from their country, which means that they spend more money. So this is why countries have an interest for digital nomads, and it looks like this is going to be a norm in the future. So, Amma, what are the other things that we may see in the future?
It's funny that you mentioned this absolute complete chill working environment because, frankly, people want to also be able to enjoy things while they work. So, a similar
Mhm.
concept that's brought about is the concept of co working. Now, it isn't really co working in the sense, you work together in the same office or whatever, but it is an
Mhm.
arrangement where you sort of share different corporations, workers of a different company or different corporation, share an office space. So this is actually quite an emerging trend. And to look into it, we'll look at this one company called Roam, Roam, right? We leave a link for
Okay.
them in the description if you want to know more about it. But very briefly, they are a company that runs essentially meeting rooms and like relaxation areas, cocktail bars, things like that. And the point of the entire thing is to simulate an environment that feels less like an office vibe where people of different professions, people even in different departments within the same corporation can
Mhm.
commune in a professional sense, right? And all of that has shown signs to have increased productivity within the workers. Now, again, this is obviously rather pre COVID, right? Or
Yeah, yeah.
potentially even post COVID in a world where connectivity has become probably a lot more important. But they also have a service for the same medium online. And the good thing is that a company like Roam, for example, provides everything you need in this particular meeting rooms, for example. They have all the tech you
All
need.
right.
They're decently cheap. You pay less on things like leases and everything. So it's an option that many companies are actually taking, right? So now if you look at some statistics in regards to this program, right? Now you
Mhm.
have 2.3 million people who are already sharing communal workspaces, right? So it's not completely out of the world. And
Mm-hmm.
also, it's shown that 89% of workers are happier in co-working spaces because of the increased interaction, because of the lack of complete barriers in communication.
Having
And
a boss looking over you.
yeah, having a boss looking over
Yeah.
you. And it also shows that, 84% of people are more engaged and motivated to work in these scenarios. So some of the photos that they show on their website actually show like it's an office, but it's a lot more homey, it's a lot more friendly environment. It's actually a very interesting concept to have. Now, the
Mhm.
thing is, this works in more developed countries and
Yeah.
in situations where you have 9 to 5 jobs. So, Vishnu, tell me about other alternatives or alternatives in poorer countries.
Yeah. So in your poorer countries, you're not going to be able to afford to stay in like a mini apartment where you have like a pool table, a swimming pool, a jacuzzi, all within the same vicinity.
Yeah.
So let's talk about poorer countries and how they would fare with job prospects in the future. So let's put a bit of context in like these developing countries. So most of the developing countries, whether it's from Asia or like Africa or South America, your minimum wage is pretty low, or your average wage is very low. It could be like about $2 to $3 per day.
To put into
So
perspective, that's like what, 300 ringgit a month?
is that?
I think yeah, it's 300 ringgit a
Yeah,
month.
around there, like
It's quite
250
low.
to 300. That's just a madness, lah.
Yeah.
So these people are like really scavenging for like basic needs. So these people need to find other alternatives to get their job. So that's one thing that's important. But the second is that these individuals also need to transition to more modern jobs where they get more engaged with technology and just be a part of this evolution of like working conditions or the jobs that are created just by technology existing, right? So one of the most common concepts that exists in these countries is called the human cloud. So what is this human cloud, right? Basically, on the internet, let's just say I need someone to maybe code for me a certain program, right? And let's say I don't have the time for that, or maybe it's too expensive to hire someone to do coding for me from a rich country. So what I would do is I would put this assignment or put this task on the human cloud. And there'll be various people who are willing to offer their service to do this program for me for a very cheap price, right? So basically, this is like the gig economy on the human cloud. So here's why it's so good, right? The good thing about the gig economy is that if you're just able to do it, it's quite flexible in terms of being able to access doing the assignments, right? Because there's also like ratings on how good you are and how bad you are. So people can assess your skills and your qualities as a gig worker on the human cloud, right? The next thing that's also pretty good about this is when the human cloud exists, there is a demand for cheaper work from the gig economy. So if there's a demand for these workers, then there's definitely going to be an incentive to supply the workers to carry out these tasks. So, for example, in Kenya, what the Kenya government has done something called SAMA. I think I'm producing it right. SAMA. I mean, Malaysia has SAMA. Maybe Kenyans have another way of pronouncing the word. But basically, what SAMA does is they train a lot of individuals to carry out basic tasks. Like maybe they can learn how to code like a basic programming language so that they can carry out tasks on the human cloud. So the benefit of this is simple, right? The benefit of this is that SAMA doesn't require you to have a degree. It doesn't require you to have the most exorbitant like academic qualification in order to perform tasks for people on the human cloud. So that means it is very accessible to people on the ground. You just need to have internet, you need a compatible device, and you're good to go. Compared to like saving up so much money for a degree. I mean, we talked about the minimum wage, right? And I don't think it's possible for people to get a degree unless they take like huge loans that they can
Yeah.
never pay back. That's for another day, right? So this is why SAMA is a pretty cool initiative and why the human cloud is pretty good for people in poor country. Now, the only worry that people have is that if a lot of people are going to start offering their services as a gig worker, then the price is reduced. Because if supply is so high and demand is lower, then people are going to pay less money for these workers, right? I think the reason why this is okay, even if it's true, is that only in this world where gig economy, where the human cloud exists, a lot of these individuals can obtain much better skills to get better jobs in the future, or to even have experience working with companies that would have never hired them in the first place. So this is how poorer countries fare with the gig economy. Now, Amma, what about wealthier countries? How do they fare with it?
Right. So the thing is, let's paint a picture. Let's make a comparative, right? In poorer countries like Kenya, for example, where there's a couple of things. There's a workforce because people are already making a very low minimum wage, and at this point, anything is better than nothing, right?
Hmm?
The problem is countries like Kenya don't have the proper infrastructure to support a system where every single person buys into this gig economy, right? Which is why they're only training a certain number of people, which is why
Mm-hmm.
accessibility is little. It's an improvement for sure.
Yeah.
The comparative is that in wealthier countries, everyone has access to things like that. Everyone, most more than likely, that a majority of people can go on the internet and do these things, can do freelance, can offer their service, right? Which means that in online platforms and online intermediaries, there is no limit, there's no cap to the number of freelancers that would clock in each day to offer their service, right? There's absolutely no
Mhm.
limit. This means that a market or a particular industry is so flooded with people offering their service, so flooded with competition, that in an effort to compete, in an effort to remain relevant, prices go down. Therefore, their earnings go down. Now, if you were to look at things from the perspective of a consumer, competition is good because competition is options, right?
Yeah.
But there's a risk that it denies the people working within these gig economies very basic employment rights. So let's paint another picture here. You have a company that hires people to work on this gig economy basis where they offer freelance services,
Mhm.
right? And let's say in an effort to increase their productivity, their efficiency, right? Employees are pressured even more. More and more and more to the point where they are being almost to the line of them being exploited.
Mhm.
Right? And many of these companies that have these systems probably use some form of a quota system to gauge how well you're doing in your company, how well your performance is. Or they calculate your commission to determine whether you need a job or not. You should have a job in that company or not. Which means as competition increases, an individual's concerns about their job security also increases, right? And their job security becomes something very fickle. So that is something where corporations could potentially take advantage of workers on the ground. So the thing is, Independent Workers Union of Great Britain, for example, is mounting legal action to challenge against gig economy in large corporations, mainly because of that potential to exploit, that potential to take advantage of, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Because that lack of that really aggressively greedy form of capitalism in wealthier countries will more than likely increase workspace inequality, and that's not going to really help anybody. Now, the comparative is that doesn't exist in poor countries because, like I said, the infrastructure isn't as developed, which means only a certain
Yeah.
subgroup get involved in this. So it's like the question then becomes in wealthier countries, how exactly do you really like monitor the performance of one of your employees? Like, how does that happen, Vishnu?
So I think in the past, I only remember this because in school they used to have like a card where they check in. I
Yeah.
think in uni they still like use your student card or your lecturer's card
Yeah.
to check in, right? But I think companies want to take it more further to just gauge your efficiency and productivity. So there's something called like a sociometric badge. Basically, there's like so many forms of technology that companies can use to track you. Some of them put like a chip at the side of your hand. Maybe they connect via Bluetooth to your devices. They have motion sensors.
Yeah.
For some companies, right, like even your laptop, the company laptop that's given to you will collect data on how well you're doing your work, how much time you're spending on your work, just to
Wow.
gauge on your efficiency and productivity. So companies are trying as many things as possible in order to gauge about your efficiency and productivity. So some of these things are like biometric to some extent, where they like attach it to your body or it's like part of your individual, or some of it is just like obtaining data from all your devices, right? Or maybe even from your emails or from your calendars, just to see whether you're doing all of your things. So initially, it sounds good because because a lot of the individuals, I mean, obviously your company's staring you down like the webcam, right? So a lot of people just start to feel compelled to work more productively because they're being like watched the whole time. So business starts to boom generally. Workers are like doing meetings much more often. They are more productive in general. So companies do better. But The biggest concern that the sociometric badges has associated with it is one, the welfare of the people, and two, the rights of the people towards their own privacy. Because you're literally infringing on individuals 24/7. Like imagine if there's like a chip in my hand, right, that tracks wherever I go, whatever I'm doing at every set point in time. Your company is literally infringing on your own privacy to your own life and controlling whatever you want to do. And that sucks, right? That a company can literally control you for whomever you are, like as if you've given your life to these companies. So a lot of people in general do concede that it's going to become common because companies have an incentive to monitor you as much as possible. But there's going to be some backlash to it because of the distrust that you have with your companies and the infringement that these companies have over you. So we're going to look at an evolution in the world where people are going to be more restrictive over the rights that companies have taken from them because of how intrusive capitalism can be when it's extremely aggressive. Something you mentioned about Amma,
Yeah.
which brings us to talk about the last thing, which is automation. So Amma, there's a lot of stereotypes about automation and how it can take away jobs or give jobs. Let's clarify this once and for all.
Yeah. So the thing about automation is it is probably the biggest threat to on-field or blue-collar jobs or those kind of forms of employment, right?
So that's true, right?
Yeah, right. Machines are more effective. It's as simple as that. They're more efficient. They don't need sleep, they don't need to eat, they don't get tired. They just
Yeah.
perform better. And they're becoming increasingly used in mass production. But the thing is, if we were to look at an example, right? Let's say you have a warehouse. There's this warehouse in southern England, right? That has a fully automated swarm of robots that essentially do packing groceries and everything for Ocado, one of a British firm that does groceries, right? And they're one of the most advanced technological retailers there are. Now, the thing is, you would look at this and you would think, hey, look, these robots are replacing human jobs, right? Your people are losing their jobs. But the thing is, that's not always the case, right? What happens is that when one job is filled up by these robots, there are usually other job opportunities that open up for people in terms of maintenance, in terms of actually creating these robots. It's not to say complete human disconnect. So, if you were to look at reports, before we won't go to that, let's look at other simple things that currently humans still do. As robots replace humans in, say, the production line, for example, deliveries and all are still done by humans, right? With maybe a little robotic assistance. Things like that exist in the world, right? So the thing is, this company, Ocado, right? They say these robots create increased jobs at the corporation, right? Right, mainly in regards to technological advancement, in growing the business in terms of what it can do. And the bottom line is, AI and machinery create just as much, if not more, jobs than they actually take away. Now, if we were to look at a report, right, a report that will probably be linked in the video that we'll put in below, shows that 75 million jobs will be lost globally by 2022. Right? That's next year, just to put into perspective. But at the same time, that could potentially be up to 133 million new ones. Right? So this is something that's especially prevalent in the world of engineering, which we are in, right? Now, if you look at things like for factory work, for example, where previously engineers used to actually make things by hand, now we work more towards maintenance, more towards technical support, rather than actually providing a technical service. So the future in this case is largely regarding collaboration between humans and technology to achieve peak efficiency, to achieve more and more than we possibly can. So I think this is a particular field, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, Vishnu, that this is probably something that's going to boom after COVID because of the sheer amount of people that have lost their jobs here in most blue-collar jobs. Like, if in an ideal world, if this were to happen, it could be very likely a possibility that people could go into these fields.
So here's the thing. I think the issue is that, okay, it is true that you create a lot of job opportunities.
Yeah.
But let's just say to even maintain these machines or to create these machines, I think that there's going to be like a slightly higher requirement of qualifications. Like, for example, if my job was just to like deliver pizzas, I just needed to know how to ride a bike.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe now your requirement also is a phone, but let's just say a drone. were to be able to like deliver something faster than you, with less like limitations, right? So how does this guy who can just learn how to ride a bike transition with this evolution of the workforce? Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's a really good point to bring up, and I think that mostly comes in terms of the vocational training that we mentioned previously. Like it's something
Mm,
similar to that
yeah,
concept of what I have in Kenya. I think there's definitely going to be an increase in requirements in terms of jobs, and people will probably people will definitely struggle with it, right?
yeah,
If you're working 20 years in a factory on a production line and suddenly you have to maintain this techie robot that you have no idea about, you're bound to
true.
struggle, right?
Mm,
But I think this is the direction the world is going in. And I don't
yeah,
think, yeah, I think regardless of how, it's a bit difficult to say it in the right way, but people are more than likely going to lose their jobs as this happens. And
true.
as engineers, we learn one very important thing very early on, that is that the most important thing for an engineer is adaptability.
Yeah.
Tech doesn't
Mm,
wait for us. Advancement doesn't really wait for us. I think we are coming closer to the time where that affects not just people involved in the tech world, but everybody as a whole.
yeah.
And this is
Even the
this,
blue collar jobs.
yeah, even blue collar jobs. And this process, I feel, has been sped up by COVID because suddenly everything is related to tech.
Yeah.
So it's a perspective that we definitely need to consider in regards to how jobs are going to work in the future.
Yeah. Um, I feel like if there's not enough protection for these blue collar workers, and if there's not enough funding that goes into these initiatives, then you have severe unemployed individuals, and then there's going to be like a burden on the state to provide welfare for all of
Yep.
these people who are
Yeah.
unemployed, to retrain them.
Yeah.
And if they don't get the training, and like I don't know, these guys are depressed or they can't do anything with their lives, that's
Yeah.
even more a greater burden on the
Yep.
state. So some funding needs to go there to
Yep.
help these people transition.
Definitely.
Fingers crossed.
Yep. Fingers crossed
Um,
indeed.
so that is it. That is our session on how the job market would look like in the future. Huge shout out to The Economist. Link is in the description down below. For most of our references were directly from that video. So I highly suggest you guys check it out if you want to know more. If you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you didn't enjoy it, click the like button twice. Go follow all our socials. Link is in the description. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you the next time. Goodbye.
Ciao.